Hey everybody, Mr. Macintosh here, and macOS Monterey is here, and I've heard you loud and clear. You want to be able to install Monterey on your unsupported Mac from 2008 to 2014. Well, I'm going to show you how to do it with OpenCore Legacy Patcher, and I'm going to give you a complete walkthrough on how to download Monterey, create the USB installer, set up OpenCore Legacy Patcher, install Monterey, and then configure and install the accelerated graphics patches after. We got a lot to cover. Let's jump in and get started. First, let's talk updates. I need to be able to communicate with you if there's a problem or change with the patcher or the latest version of macOS Monterey. So I figured out a way to do that in the description below. So scroll down in the video, click show more in the comments, and I'm going to have an update section with a date on it here. If there's any changes or information that you need to know in the video about the patcher. For example, just today, macOS Monterey 12.1 Beta 1 dropped and there's a problem with the patcher and you don't want to install it. So I put a link to the issues page on the OpenCore Legacy Patcher so you can be up to date. So again, check here before you install and you'll be fully up to date. Let's go over a couple quick requirements here. First of all, macOS Monterey is brand new. It just came out this week, and the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher is also new. With that said, they're both stable and they're working, but there is a couple bugs here and there. As Monterey matures and OpenCore Legacy Patcher matures, just like it is for Big Sur is stable on unsupported Macs right now. Monterey will get there. Once it does, you don't have to worry about this anymore. Now, the next thing is, if this is your only Mac, make sure you back up all your data if you're going to do an upgrade. You want to have that data backed up either in the cloud or on a time machine or an external hard drive. Now, the equipment needed, obviously you need an unsupported Mac from 2008 to 2014. Also, the recommended hardware is that you have an SSD or a solid state hard drive and at least 8 gigabytes of RAM. These are not absolute requirements. If you have 4 gigabytes of RAM or an old spinning hard drive, that's fine, but to get the fastest experience on macOS Monterey, those are the recommended pieces that you should have. The next thing is you're going to need is an external hard drive or a USB flash drive. It's 16 gigabytes or larger, and this is to be able to boot your Mac to the macOS Monterey installer to be able to install Monterey. I also recommend the speed is 3.0 or faster. You can get a very cheap one like a 2.0, but it's going to be slow copying and installing macOS. So again, spend a little bit more to get a USB 3.0 or above. I'm going to put these links in the description. We've got links to OpenCore Legacy Patcher, the Discord for support, and also a huge Mac Rumors thread that has a place where you can answer questions and put comments in there. Plus, there's a supported models page that you want to check out before you even get started to make sure your particular model is fully supported. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, we have to download macOS Monterey Full Installer. And the easiest way to do that is just to use my site. And I'll include a link in the description to be able to download the full installer of macOS Monterey. The very first version, 12.0.1, is right here, but as Monterey matures, you'll see 12.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here, and you'll want to click on the latest version. But again, make sure you check that updates just to make sure that an update that came out is not causing problems and you would want to download the previous version. So to download, all you need to do is click on this link here and you'll see it jump right into your downloads folder. Okay, when that's done downloading, you can just open up your downloads folder, click on it once, and we're going to run the installer. This package comes from Apple servers, and that's what the link is on my website. So when you click through this, all it's going to do is move the full installer of macOS Monterey. I've got the applications folder open so we can watch it be installed right to the applications folder. So we'll click on install, enter in our password, and it'll copy the file right over, and there it is. Install macOS Monterey Full Installer. Now that we have that, we're ready to create the USB installer. Okay, now it's time to erase and install macOS Monterey to our USB hard drive. So we'll plug in our USB hard drive here to our Mac. We'll wait until it loads onto the desktop here. And there it is. Now we need to open up disk utility. So command space, type in disk utility and hit enter. Now we're in disk utility. You'll see that the internal hard drive is right here. So you don't want to do anything over here. And we want to go right to the external drive. Make sure when you click on view here that show all devices is selected. Usually it's going to show just the volumes. So click here and click show all devices and then you'll be able to see the top level drive and the partition. The first thing you want to do is make sure all the data is transferred off this USB drive if you had anything on there, because we're going to erase the entire drive. To do that, click on the top level drive here, click erase, and you have to see these 3 sections. If you only see name and format, that's going to be a problem because you won't be able to set the scheme properly. So make sure that we name it. It doesn't really matter what the name is because the installer will write over it. Make sure the format is macOS Extended Journaled. Make sure the scheme is GUID Partition Map. Once you have that, click erase. Click done, and we're done with disk utility. Now we're ready to create the full installer. To do that, all we need to do is open up terminal. We'll hit command space, type in terminal, enter. We have to run the first command as an administrator, so we'll type in sudo, space. And then we're going to go back to our applications window here, and then we're going to go into the installer to get the binary command. So you can right click on it if you have right click enabled, and if you don't, hold down control and then click, and then you can show package contents. Then you go into the contents folder, go into the resources folder, and create install media is right here. So all you need to do is drag that to the window and you got the entire command. Make sure that there's a space here where you're going to use the volume option. So dash volume, and then space, and then we can just drag our USB drive right to the window. And that's it. Hit enter. Type in our administrator password, hit enter, and it's going to ask us, are you sure you want to erase it? Yes, we do. And there it goes. It's going to erase the disk. It's going to make it bootable, and then it's going to copy all the macOS Monterey files to the USB drive. Depending on the kind of USB drive that you have, for example, if you got one of those cheaper USB 2.0 flash drives, the copy could be really slow. It could take a half hour. So how do you know what's happening? The best thing to do is open up Activity Monitor. So to do that, hit Command Space again for Spotlight, type in Activity Monitor and hit enter. And then we want to click the disk tab up here, and then we can return to our window, and then we can start to see some stats down here. You can see that right now it's reading 12 megabytes a second, and it's writing about 6 to 8 megabytes a second. But that will go up in speed once it actually starts to copy the files over to the USB drive. And then you're going to see a percentage mark all the way from 0 to 100 there. So when we're done with that part, we'll come right back. Okay, we're at about 30% here, and I just wanted to show you we're definitely picking up some speed. We're reading at about 100 megabytes a second, and we're also writing from 80 to 100 megabytes a second, so we should be done pretty quickly here. Okay, we're done. You can see here, install media is now available at Volumes Install macOS Monterey, and I want to show you a real quick tip. Let's open up the USB here, and we can see macOS Monterey is in here now, so we can move this to the side, click on the drive again, and then click Command-I to get information on it, and then click Command-I to get information about Install macOS Monterey. We can click on the icon up here and do Command C to copy, and then click on the icon over here and go Command V to paste, and look at that, we got a cool macOS Monterey icon. And I also like to rename it to the version that we're using here, so all you need to do is click on here once, and then you can edit this text in here, and then we can just name it Monterey space 12.0.1, so whenever you come back you'll know, hey, this installer is 12.0.1. To be a 2011 15-inch MacBook Pro, and this does not have a metal compatible graphics card in there, and what that means is that we're going to have to install the post volume patches for graphics acceleration at the end. I've got my USB drive plugged in here, and now we have to download OpenCore Legacy Patcher application. I'll make sure I put a link in the description to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher GitHub for the latest version here. Again, make sure you check that update section in the description just to make sure that there's no differences with the walkthrough and the installer and the version that we're using. So right now we're going to click on the releases here, and then we're going to scroll down and we're going to use the TUI app, or the Terminal User Interface app. So we'll click on this to download. It'll go right into our downloads folder, and when it's done you can click here and you can see here's the application. We will open up Finder here, and then we'll click on applications on the left hand side, and then we'll move the OpenCore Legacy Patcher right to our applications folder, and there it is. Now we can start it up, and then click open. Here's the main menu of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. The first thing we're going to do is install OpenCore Legacy Patcher bootloader to the USB drive here that we just plugged in, the macOS Monterey Full Installer. The first thing we're going to do is look here, and we can see that the patcher detects that this is a 2011 8,2 MacBook Pro. Now keep in mind, when we're doing the building, we have to build it on the hardware that we're using because it has hardware detection to put the right files on there. You can build this from another Mac, but you would have to change the model number to specify. So if, for example, if you had another Mac and you're just building it on there first, you would have to change the model to the target model, and then you'd be okay. But it's easier just to install and create it on the Mac that you're going to do the upgrade on. The other thing we notice is that we're using 031. It's a big change from what we've worked with in the past. We had a different menu system here, so some of the changes here are made to make it a little bit easier on the user. It's really nicely laid out now. The best part is that most of the settings are already pre-configured with what we need to do to build OpenCore. We don't really even need to go in here and change anything. What we will do though is verify that verbose mode is on. Verbose boot will show text when the Mac is booting, so if it gets stuck somewhere, you'll be able to tell the Discord chat or in the description of this video or the Mac Rumors thread where you're having problems if the installer or the booting system of macOS Monterey gets stuck. And that is really nice when you're trying to troubleshoot. So let's go into the patcher settings with number 5, and then we'll look at the debug settings number 1 and then hit enter. And you can see debug is already on. So we don't even need to do anything. If it's set to false, click on number 1 and hit Y to turn verbose mode on. Hit Q to quit, and we're ready to build those settings. So we'll hit Q to quit. Now we're back at the main menu. Now we'll click number 1 to build those settings to that temporary folder. And there it is. This is the temporary folder where all those files and settings are written to. We'll hit enter to go back. Now we can install that on our USB drive. Click on number 2 and hit enter. It's going to look at all the drives in the system. The first disk should always be the internal hard drive. The second drive should be always your USB flash drive. So we'll click on number 2 and hit enter. And then number 1 for the EFI partition. And then hit enter. It's going to ask us for an administrator password. We'll type that in, hit enter. And then it's going to copy all those files to the EFI partition. It's done. Hit enter. Now this USB is ready to be able to boot to the recovery and install macOS Monterey. We'll hit Q to quit and terminate. And then we'll hit Apple to restart and hold down the Option key for the boot picker menu. Okay, after rebooting the Mac and holding down the Option key, we're at the boot picker selection screen. This is where we tell the Mac to boot into the internal hard drive or a USB installer or the EFI boot picker. So what we want to do is hold down Option again and then click on EFI boot. Now we'll be at the OpenCore Legacy Patcher booter. Right click over and then click on Monterey 12.0.1. Now we're going to boot into the Monterey USB installer. And as you can see here with the text on the screen, this is verbose boot. And again, that's why we're using this mode, so you don't just see the progress bar and it gets stuck somewhere and you're like, what's wrong with it? It'll actually tell you on the screen, well, hey, there's a kernel panic or there's stuck at a certain point, and this is where you'll be able to tell someone if you're having problems. So in a second here, we'll be in the macOS Monterey recovery. Okay, we're in recovery. Now we can click on the next button here. We're going to go through how to do an erase and install and an upgrade. If you just want to upgrade, let's say you were on High Sierra, just like we're on now, and you want to just be able to install macOS Monterey over the top of it and retain all your data, all you need to do is click Install macOS Monterey, click Continue, click Agree, and click on Macintosh hard drive and click here, and that would be an upgrade. But we're going to go through and erase and install so we can start out absolutely fresh and clean. But now is one final warning before we go through this process, that if you have any data on this drive, make sure you back it up now because we're erasing the entire drive. So we're going to go back to the selection menu here. We're going to go into Disk Utility, click on Continue. We're going to click on View and Show All Devices. We're going to click on the top level drive and we're going to click on Erase. And then we're going to name it Macintosh hard drive. Make sure it's formatted in APFS and GUID partition map. Hit erase. Okay, we're done. Now we'll click done and we can exit Disk Utility. And then click on Install macOS Monterey. And we'll go through just like we did just earlier, showing how to do the upgrade. Click Agree and Agree. And there it is. There's our blank drive, and we're going to install on afresh. And there it goes. It's going to copy the files to the internal hard drive from the USB drive. Then it's going to reboot to the installer and then copy all the files and configure macOS Monterey. And before you know it, we'll be at the Setup Assistant. Alright, we made it to macOS Monterey on our 2011 15-inch MacBook Pro. Now, first of all, right off the bat, since the accelerated graphics volume patch has not been applied yet, the Setup Assistant will be slow. You'll also notice that the fans might be spinning again because in the background, the system is doing maintenance tasks like spotlight indexing and all that stuff, so that will be there for maybe anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. Then the fan should slow down after you get all the volume patches and everything set up. So I'm going to take this thing through the Setup Assistant and we'll see it right on the desktop. Okay, we're back on the desktop. Now we've got two more steps to complete here. First of all, we will have to install OpenCore Legacy Patcher to our internal hard drive. When we did the first step, we just installed to the USB drive and we still have that plugged in, and that's how we were able to get to the desktop here. Now, if we want to be able to remove that USB, we will have to install to the hard drive so we can boot without the USB anymore, and then it'll boot just like a regular Mac. Then the second thing is, since we have a 2011 non-metal compatible graphics card, we'll have to install the post volume patch for the graphics acceleration to start working. If you upgraded, your OpenCore Legacy Patcher application will still be in here because all your data will be here. But since we did a clean install, we do not have the app on here and we'll have to go download it again. So all we need to do is open up Safari and go to OpenCore Legacy Patcher's GitHub, and we'll download the latest release. And again, we will be downloading the TUI, or Terminal User Interface app, and then we'll open up Applications. And we're going to drop it right in there just like we did before. Okay, let's fire it up. Open. Just like we did with the USB installer, we're going to build the settings out for the internal hard drive this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Patcher settings number 5, and we're going to make sure debug mode is off this time. We're going to click number 1. And since it's true, we're going to click number 1 and we're going to turn that off because we want it to boot like a normal Mac. We'll hit Q to quit. And now the other thing we want to do is turn off the boot picker mode. So we'll go into number 5 for miscellaneous settings. And you can see number 1, show boot picker mode. So anytime you turn on the Mac, it'll show you that boot picker. But if we wanted to boot like a normal Mac and just go right to the Apple logo and the progress bar, we want to turn that off. So we'll click on number 1. And then we'll hit no to turn that off. Now that's done. We'll click Q to quit. And then we will click Q to quit again to get back to the main menu. And now we can build OpenCore. So we'll click on number 1 to build OpenCore. And now it's at the temporary folder again. Let's hit enter to go back. Hit number 2 to install OpenCore to the internal hard drive. Now it does see the USB drive there, and that's okay. We're going to do 0 now for the internal hard drive. And number 1 for the EFI. And an administrator password. And that's it. Hit enter to continue. The best thing to do is to make sure that we're booting up correctly before we install the post volume patch. So what we'll do is we'll click quit, and then we're going to reboot by holding down the option key, and then we're going to select the boot EFI as the default boot disk. We're going to, first of all, we're going to eject our USB drive here and click on eject. Now unplug it. Okay, now we're ready to reboot. So we'll go up to the Apple logo and we'll hit restart, and we're going to hold down option. And there we are. We're at the boot picker. What we have to do is we have to hold down the control button. As you can see, that it turns into a circle. That means that we're turning that into the default hard drive. All we need to do is click it on once, and that's it. It's going to boot to that EFI bootloader every time, and then boot up macOS Monterey without the USB disk plugged in anymore. Now we only have one more step to do, and that is installing the post volume patch for the graphics acceleration. We'll log back in. Okay, we'll fire up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app again. Okay, before we install the post volume patch for graphics acceleration for 2011 and below Macs, and for the HD4000 on a couple 2012 Macs, we have to talk about a problem with the 2011 15 and 17-inch MacBook Pro. Now, if you don't have that model, skip over this part until I start doing the post volume and patch. But if you do have one of these models, this is where the update section below will come in handy, because if this problem is fixed later, you won't even have to do this part. But I have to do this because I'm running a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and if you don't do this part, you won't be able to log in. And let me show you what that looks like. You can see here that there's a section in the OpenCore Legacy documentation that says cannot log in on a 2011, 15, or 17-inch MacBook Pro, and we have to disable DGPU. And to do that, we can run this NVRAM command, and then that disables it, and we'll be able to log in without any problem. So we'll highlight it, and we'll go Command-C to copy it, and then we'll move into the terminal. We'll open up a new tab. We'll run this at sudo, so we'll do sudo space and then paste, and we can run this command. Type in our administrator password, and that's set. The DGPU is now disabled, and we can install the post volume patches and log right back in after. Okay, now we're ready to install the post volume patch. Let's click on number 3, hit enter. Now this tells you the graphics acceleration for the different chips that this will be working on. We're ready to do that, so we can click on number 1 to patch the system volume. It says, would you like to continue for the root patching? Yes, we do. Hit enter. And it's going to download the patches directly from the GitHub, and it's going to install them, and then we'll be ready to go. And it says the binary is downloaded to this location. Hit enter to continue, and we'll have to enter our administrator password here, and then it's going to continue here. Hit enter with the cache rebuild, enter with snapshotting, and that's it. We're done. Hit enter to continue, Q to quit. We'll go up to the Apple logo, and we'll reboot, and we'll have graphics acceleration. Okay, 3 quick things before we finish up with the non-metal compatible Macs from 2011 to 2008. First of all, software updates. If you go into software update, you can actually apply the software updates right from here. But again, check that update section in the description just in case there's not a problem with the next update before you go. Now, the other thing is that the update will be a full 12 gigabyte update because we had to root patch for the graphics acceleration. So if you see that, that's normal for graphics acceleration Macs with the patch. If you have a metal GPU, it's going to be a Delta update between 3 and 4 gigabytes in size. That's software updates. The next thing is if you have a Terascale 2 GPU, the HD4000 and 6000 graphic card, you might be seeing some inverted colors right now. All you need to do is download ResXtreme to be able to fix that issue. So all you need to do is go to the site here, click download here, and if you get an ad, hit the close button, give it a second for the progress bar to go. Make sure that the screen says, do you want to allow the downloads for macdownload.com? Click on allow, and it'll go right to your downloads folder, and there's ResXtreme. Open up your Macintosh hard drive or Finder, go to applications, and then you can just drag it right from downloads to your applications folder. Double click on it to open it up and click on open, and then click the down arrow here, and all you need to do is double click on the top resolution like this, and the inverted colors should immediately disappear. So that's that part. Now the final part is if you want your keyboard backlight working for your 2011 and lower Mac, all we need to do is go to that section of the documentation here, and then all we need to do is download LabTIC. We'll click on LabTIC, go to, and it'll take us right here. All we need to do is scroll down here and hit download, save download, give it a second to do the scan, and make sure this window comes up. We'll click allow, and it'll go right to your downloads folder again. Open up downloads again, open up the DMG, and there's the LabTIC. You can click this and then drag it to your applications folder. Once you hear that noise, you know that it copied. Click on Finder again, or open up Macintosh hard drive, go into applications, L for LabTIC, right click on it and click open, and click open. And then LabTIC will be right up here in your menu bar. What we want to do is go to the preferences by clicking the bottom button here, clicking on preferences. All you need to do is click on remember illumination and level when just on startup, and launch LabTIC when you log in, close, and that's it. Now you have keyboard backlight. And that's installing macOS Monterey on your unsupported Mac. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments. If this video created value for you, give it a thumbs up or a share. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, click on that subscribe button. If you want to see more macOS Monterey videos, click on the playlist in this window. And I also wanted to give a huge shout out to my new patrons. You guys reached out and said, I want to be able to support your channel. I like what you do. Do you have a patron? And I didn't have one, so I decided to try one, and I already have 3 patrons. We've got Apple Ninja, Swift Goose, and Apple Cheeseboy, and they all have YouTube channels, and they're all fantastic. Check them out. And I really appreciate you. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you in the next video.